now entering the horror section.
Hello and welcome back to the Horror Sanctum podcast. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, and TJ. And this week we are joined by Nashville's most powerful witch, the supreme of the coven, the omen bringer, the banshee of the bog, the lovely and talented Miss Molly Marie Kent, frontwoman from the local stoner metal band Omen Bringer. Molly, welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. Hail yourselves and hail Satan today.
Right on. So as with all our guests, we ask you guys to give us a couple movie options. You gave us some good ones. It was a tough choice. I think Mandy was one of yours. John wanted Mandy bad, but we went with Pan's Labyrinth, Guillermo del Toro's 2006 dark fantasy.
Yeah, and this was the first time I ever saw this movie. So no surprise to anyone was for this episode. And I'll be 100% honest. I didn't like it when I first saw it, and I have a very specific reason why. It's not that it's not a good movie. I don't think it's a horror film. I think it is more of a I don't even know if I would say political, but it feels more like a commentary on human nature. I didn't feel like there was any. The Pale Man is creepy. That's an iconic visual creature, and I call it a visual creature because the look of it is so iconic. But aside from that, there's not a whole lot of horror in the movie aside from the horrors of the captain, who is one of the worst characters I've ever seen in a movie. Holy cow, was this guy evil? I mean, like Hannibal Lecter level minus the likability. Like, at least when Hannibal Lecter's killing people, you like Hannibal Lecter. Like, you're like, oh, you shouldn't do that. But I love Sir Anthony Hopkins, and I love him as Hannibal Lecter. This guy, I was like, oh my god, somebody needs to kill him immediately. Like, why is he still allowed to be alive at all? it was like he solved every problem with bullets. Oh, is there a problem? Do we need to discuss something? How about we discuss with that? A gun
Violence.
To the head.
I think he was worse than Hans Landa. Like, didn't we say that in the group text? You were talking about Hans Landa maybe a little better
from
than he is.
Inglourious Bastards.
Yeah,
I said it made him look like Captain Crunch. As evil as he was in that movie, you see this guy. And the biggest scene that points out, I mean, even beside the ending, and spoilers if you've never seen it, even beside him shooting the girl in the end, wasn't as evil as the whole visual of him shooting the doctor. When the doctor walks out and is walking away, and he just comes out and shoots him, and you see him slowly checks his glass. I was like, that was such a heartbreaking and horrifying scene to watch. So, I mean, it does have horror elements, but like I said, this is more feels like a social commentary on the evils of man. And for a movie called Pan's Labyrinth, there's not a whole lot of labyrinth in it. we don't spend a whole lot of time there. We spend a lot more time watching Nazis do Nazi things, which just brings the whole mood down. And I guess that's the reason when I initially watched it for the first time that I didn't enjoy this film, because I went in expecting it to be a horror film. You see the visuals that they portray in the previews of Pan and the Pale Man, of the scenes from the labyrinth, but that's a small part of this movie. For it to be titled Pan's Labyrinth, Pan's Labyrinth is not that big, not the biggest part of the story. I was also a little confused, and I'm sure people that love the movie or that have seen it more than me No, was that real, or was this all in her head? Was this like a coping mechanism for her having to cope with everything that was going on? Because the dialogue
that's on
at
you.
the end, huh?
That's on you. He left it ambiguous for that reason, so you can kind of go which direction you think it is. And I think
However,
it was
if you
more...
listen to his audio commentary, he says for him, it was real.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
And,
I
I
hope
mean,
so.
there's plenty of movies that the name doesn't have anything to do with the movie.
Chopping
But
Mall. There was no chopping in Chopping Mall. Fantastic movie. But
I don't think there is.
Labyrinth,
Troll 2.
right.
Uh,
Labyrinth is just a metaphor, anyways, for a journey, like a life journey, which is basically what we get here with her going through this rough patch in her life with her mom and the captain and soon to be baby bro.
Yeah, even more literally, it's a maze, which a maze has stopping points, right? You're going to run into dead ends in a maze, and just like you said, Jay, in life and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I chose more of a horror film. You guys chose Pan's Labyrinth. So I would agree. It
Well,
is not technically a full-on horror movie. It's more of a fantasy.
yeah, and I was the I think the tiebreaker to
Yep.
pick this, and it was because I had never seen it. It was a movie I'd always wanted to see. Jay had spoke highly of it before. Everything I had seen about it intrigued me. I was a little thrown off when it was all in Spanish at first because I had no idea. Like
I think
didn't
you
know anything about
text
it.
me. I think you text me like, "Is this whole movie in Spanish?"
I probably did.
I said,
I don't
"Yep."
like to read.
I probably should have said, "No, it's not. Just wait."
Well, to be fair, I have ADD, and my ability to focus on multiple things at once is very minuscule. So if I have to read, I'm missing the movie, and if I'm watching the movie, I'm missing the dialogue. So I can't. My brain kind of goes into overdrive, up and down, trying to figure out whether I should be watching the scene or reading the scene. So
Poor
I
baby.
just,
Poor baby.
I had, I had the same problem with oh, what was the movie? When Evil Lurks. I had the same problem with that, but that movie was a little more straightforward in what was going on. Pan's Labyrinth has a little more nuance in the delivery, so you almost need to know what they're saying more than what's going on. But all that to say, it's a really good movie. Visually, it's gorgeous. It's shot incredibly well. I mean, I would put this up there with any of the great directors as far as the direction of the film. Any of the modern, greats like Scorsese or Christopher Nolan. Just the way this movie is shot, the way the scenes unfold. It's just beautiful cinema. So like I said, when I first watched it, I didn't like it because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But the more I sat and stewed over it and thought about it, I come away with a different perspective. It's a really good movie, but again, I don't think it's a horror movie.
Yeah, you're not wrong about the horror aspect, which we did do Angel a couple episodes back. So it's in the same wheelhouse. There's definitely horror elements, just like Angel, and what Silence of the Lambs was another one. We're like, is this a horror movie? I think if it has elements, count it. When you watch this, if you were younger, I mean, it would be terrifying. The situation itself is terrifying. Like Nazis are horror, like through and through. So, yeah. So Molly, let's go over to you. Tell us why this was one of your options for us to watch, and what you think about it.
Well, I would put this up there as like a must-see movie because it is so interesting. It has such a magnificent and poignant story. It has everything. It has like character elements, like you get really invested in the little girl and the characters in the movie because it doesn't overdo it. It's like everything is just right, just the right amount of special effects, the right amount of nuance, the right amount of question and thinking. Like you said, you're not really sure if the fantasy element is real or if it's imagined. Just the color palette alone of the movie is fascinating. It's similar to Amelie, where it has a very clear and concise color palette. It's got greens and blues and dark purples everywhere. So it's a visually stunning movie, and then it's a beautiful movie as well. So that's kind of why it's like way up there in the movies that I like. And because it's multifaceted, it doesn't fit into the box of one genre. So it is difficult to, put it into a genre because it has so many different things going on. Is it a period piece? Is it a sci-fi? Is it fantasy? Is it a horror movie? So, but definitely the elements that are horror in it that are scary, one of the things that makes it truly terrifying is that a lot of the horror that takes place in it is something that could absolutely happen, absolutely could have happened, almost verbatim at that time. So, and then there's the horror of like childbirth, which is like yucky. I don't like it. I don't want to have a kid ever. And it sounds horrible. And I can't imagine what it was like basically almost 100 years ago with a lot less drugs and a lot less help, for women. So it's a lot scarier to be pregnant. And that's kind of like one of the underlying themes in this like movie. It's kind of refers a lot to her mother's pregnancy and it going very poorly. And really a lot of all the main characters are women too. They're all heroines in this movie. Like there is no real super important male character in the movie other than the villain. So, I don't know. There's just a lot of things I like about. Oh, and the music. The music is unbelievably beautiful in this movie. And so it's just like so many different elements that I like about it. And it's got magic. All my favorite movies have magic in them. So there you go.
Yeah, I've seen this movie I think twice. So I watched it when it came out, I think 2006. And at the time, I think I really liked it. Del Toro was kind of fresh to me. I was really impressed by it. And it's not something I watch a lot. I watched it recently, and my takeaway is that it's a good movie. I don't think it's anywhere near his top films as far as like his filmography. I'm big on. I love Hellboy. I love The Devil's Backbone. I love Pacific Rim. He's done so many good movies. And for this one, I feel Nightmare Alley. That's another one, really great one. It's kind of an homage to Freaks from 1932. I think this movie, there's a lot of great things about it. I just think that it doesn't, in my opinion, I don't know, over the years, it doesn't hold up to like the sort of the grand epic that it's sort of painted out to be, in my opinion. I know many people would disagree with me on that. I know this is a bluff film, and I'm absolutely a minority in thinking this. There's something about it that is missing for me, and I think some of it goes to like the writing. Like for instance, the mom of Ophelia. I just thought that whole scenario was kind of odd, just because she's marrying the captain, right? And she's a nice person. Ophelia is a nice person. The captain is obviously like a sadomasochistic, just complete psychopath. And I just thought that was funny. Like she would put her daughter in that situation, and it was never implied in the movie that it was never implied in any way that she was forced into the marriage. That something was. It was kind of like she met him and fell in love. And I just thought that was a weird thing, given. Like, it wouldn't take much of a judge of a character to know that that guy was like horrible on every level, right? You wouldn't have to see him kill someone to do that.
I would disagree with you wholeheartedly on this entire premise that you're arguing.
Really?
Because, yes, because let me ask you something. Are you a
Mhm.
single parent?
No, but I've had kids.
But were you a single woman parent in the 40s? Like, what would that have been like?
No,
For this
that
lady.
is,
You know what I'm saying?
yeah.
It's just like, and to me also, another point to your point, this guy is a psychopath, but he clearly shows completely different personalities to everyone he's around.
That's fair.
And so, like, and
Yeah.
as somebody who's like been around people like that and
Right.
narcissists as well, they are very good at showing you one side of themselves when they want to, especially a real sociopath can show you whatever, like,
If he
they
decided
want.
he wanted her,
Well-
my thought was, it's not like she had a choice. I mean, look what he did to everybody he didn't like.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. I do agree with that. And it could have been that he kind of put on an act, because he kind of does when they first show up. But that's one thing about the writing of the script that I wish would have been a little more. Del Toro's a really smart writer. That's just one of those things where, as like a first read, I would think like, I wonder why he would choose that. And it may just be to show, like you said, not knowing what it's like to be a woman in the 40s, being pregnant. And, there's a lot of ambiguity to that. So, I mean, I understand the argument. I totally understand what you're saying. I don't know. That was a little odd to me, especially when her mom puts feel you through all of this without her choice. She dies at the end of the movie, and then when she goes to the other side, her mom is there, and I just something about that bothered me. I don't know why. It was just a personal reaction to the writing, but I can understand the argument both ways. I mean, I definitely could see the idea of not the things you don't know and the things that aren't said are still there, even if you don't see them. Yeah, I mean, I think it is a well shot film. It's pretty. The music's great. The captain is a terrible character. Holy shit. Like, so bad. Like, every villain ever, this guy is just the worst on like every level, And I think that's one thing about the movie too that's realistic, but kind of what Kellen was saying earlier, a little dissatisfying, is that he gets shot and he dies. But you almost think through the movie, you're like, oh my gosh, they need to like cut this guy's head off or something, right? But that is a very realistic thing, because if this would have happened in the 40s, it would have been something like a bullet, or so. It wouldn't be something like the cinematic, right? So I can understand why he made that choice. It's just that character, he really does. I think he gets under the audience so much because he's just so despicable. But yeah, I mean, I can see the Alice in Wonderland comparisons. It's a very sad movie. It's very realistic. I think that the way that I took it is I took it as if she's making up all of this in her head, basically to deal with the horrors around her. But the fact that Del Toro said it's real, I would definitely believe Del Toro, just because he's a very earnest guy. If you've ever listened to commentaries with him or about him on the movies, it's hilarious, because he's like, in real life, he's like quite funny. Like, he's very quirky, and he's got a huge sense of humor. Like, anything with Ron Perlman when they talk is like hilarious. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's just, it goes down a few points. There's just some things I don't personally enjoy about it. But I do think I think it's absolutely a worthwhile film to seeing. And yeah, I mean, I think it is very good. It's somewhere in the middle for me as far as how I feel about it. What do you think, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, I love this film. I watched this film when it first came out in the theater in 2006. I thought he got robbed. I don't remember which film beat him out for the best foreign language Oscar. I'd have to look into that, but I knew it was a controversy at the time. You either had to submit to the Oscars if it is a foreign language film as Best Picture or as foreign language, and they chose foreign language, and he still didn't win. He did win. It won 3 Oscars. It won for cinematography. I think a lot of the set design and that kind of stuff, a lot of the technical awards, which I think it's well deserving of. But I remember feeling like it got robbed. I do technically believe this is his best made film overall, of the story. The fact that it kind of rides the lines between, it is like a Spanish take on a Grimm fairy tale, but a unique fairy tale that incorporates a lot of different kind of mythologies, and then kind of creates its own kind of universe too. And to run that parallel, and I believe it's around the same time world, like around the Spanish Civil War, that Devil's Backbone was also took place in, which
Yeah, it was
also a great
after, because they
film.
had that one bomb that was outside of the
Yeah,
orphanage, or whatever.
and they didn't
Yeah.
know if it was active or not. Yeah, but so obviously something about that. I imagine his grandparents probably lived through that. That obviously was a time that was significant to Guillermo del Toro, even though it was well before he was born. He's only in his 50s now. But what's interesting is those cats aren't Nazis, but they may as well be. The history of the Spanish Civil War, actually, in that time period, is this cat Francisco Franco, I believe was his name, kind of took over around 1940, around the start of World War II, and specifically, like, one of his main platforms was, I'm going to reunite. There was a lot of division in Spain at the time. He wanted to reunite Spain and not be a part of World War II. His platform was neutrality. Even though at some point he did end up going to Hitler to try and get a favor or something at some point, as you do. But it's I think the intention of Guillermo in this film is to make it to where the horrors are the real life stuff. It's the real life stuff, and if you notice in the arc of how Pan is presented, it's almost, I mean, and Pan being that kind of fawn character that in anglicized culture has kind of come to be like anything that's got goat horns and hooves and stuff has to be like this idea of the devil or whatever. When it started, the and I'm sure Molly knows a lot more about this than I do, but when that idea started in kind of pagan and Celtic cultures and all that, it was an idea of this earth spirit. That's why they say the little girl Ophelia says that the fawn smelled like earth, because it is an embodiment of the earth. It comes from the earth, and kind of is protecting, almost like a guardian angel, protecting that barrier between the real world and this fantasy world that she also is a part of. And man, it's this Captain Cat in old school wrestling lingo. He's the dirtiest player in the game. He's an old school heel, man. He's like Hannibal Lecter, and Hitler had like a sex child and just got some bad shit going on. So, I mean, man, this movie is so brutal. It's not my favorite Guillermo del Toro film, but I do think it is his best made film. It's not my favorite because I can't rewatch it as much, just because it's so brutal to watch. You have to kind of prepare yourself. I have seen it a number of times over the years. I do think it is beautiful, but the two ways I've described this film to other people over the years has been hauntingly beautiful or agonizingly beautiful, and it's kind of that yin yang. You can't have one without the other, which is so much of what life is. Life is difficult for everybody. For some people, like Ophelia, it's can be agonizing, and to have that question in the film of is the fantasy world and her childlike escape, or is it really her soul being incarnated and reincarnated, and she's forgotten who she was? And there's a beauty in that kind of idea. That's more the lens I choose to take with it. And I love ending with that flower and that little monologue that's said at the end. Like, you have to know where to look to kind of see the evidence of her life. It's such a it is a drain to watch, but man, it is such a beautiful film. I think it is his best storytelling to date. My favorite films of his is Nightmare Alley, specifically watching it the black and white version, because I'm an old school film noir, detective thriller type guy, and I do love that. But man, it is hard to say this isn't his best film for me. What about you, Jay?
Yeah, I agree. I actually Googled it while John was talking. So according to Rotten Tomatoes, his number one film is the Pinocchio he did for Netflix. Number two is Pan. So critics, I don't know how that is with the fan base, but critics have that as his second best movie. I love it. I have the Criterion. I've watched it several times, and I can honestly say the movie changed my life when I watched it the first time, because I was watching a movie like nothing I've ever seen before. Visually, the story itself, like 2006 was a long time ago for me. I didn't look at movies the same way as I do now. So watching it that first time, I felt that something inside me I couldn't quite understand yet. And then I realized what it was. I watched it again. I just watched it again this week before we sat down to talk about it. And it still gives me those feelings. Like, I asked you guys in a text on that because I was just thinking, we've been snowed in, so we've been kind of getting cabin feveries. I'm like, what's a movie that's you've seen that's changed your life? And I asked it on Instagram too, got a few good answers, and Pan's Labyrinth is in there for me. I don't know why. I just remember watching it, and that bulb went off, and I never turned back. And I started just consuming more and more and more film. Worked at Hollywood Video, get more, see things like that's how I found Boondock Saints. Never heard of it, never seen it. Some guy there, he's like, have you seen this? No, we had one copy on VHS. He's like, watch it. And I'm like, holy shit. Like, there are different movies than Spider-Man and Dude, Where's My Car? And all these other films that we grew up with. There's so much more out there that is just awe-inspiring. And this is one of them. Del Toro is probably top 5 directors for me that are still actively going, probably in the top 2, if I'm being honest. I own everything he's ever done. And I loved him before I knew I loved him. Hellboy. I loved Hellboy. And then I didn't, back then directors didn't mean anything to me. Like, oh, some guy made it. That's great. Appreciate it. Going back and realizing he did that. And even Pacific Rim, like when I watched that, I wasn't even paying attention to Guillermo del Toro. Of course, he wasn't as notorious then as he is now. But I will watch anything he does, even the Cabinet of Curiosities on Netflix. I don't know if anybody else has watched that, but it's amazing. Like, each episode is so great. It's just creep show, but he's telling the stories. There's one labyrinth. You only need one labyrinth. It's also not necessarily literal, like we've talked about. There's so many other movies that have things in their name. But again, I just go back to the fact that she's on this journey in her life, which is the metaphor for the labyrinth. And that's all I can really see. As far as the ending, him wanting to be ambiguous, I didn't hear, you said it was commentary where he said to him it was real. What I read was him saying it's based on fairy tales he grew up with. So I don't know which way to go, but in my heart, it was, I compared it to the movie Sucker Punch from 2011, Zack Snyder, where she's in I guess it's a mental institute, and then she goes on these epic adventures. That's in her mind as she's getting lobotomized. That's how I looked at this one too. I don't think it was real. I think it was all in her head. It was an escape from this trauma and living in this time period that was so dark. It was just her coping mechanisms to try to survive and to be there for her mother. Doug Jones playing the creatures. I mean, perfect. He's perfect. He's been perfect since Hocus Pocus. I met him once years and years ago at a small little convention in town. And it was him and one of the artists and voices from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That's the reason I went. And Doug Jones was there, and he was the nicest man I've ever met in my life. And at the end, he took my face, he grabbed me like this, and he put his head on my head, and he said, "Be good." I'm like, "Yes, sir. Like, I'll do whatever you say. I'll be good." Like, I don't know why he did that.
Does he have crazy long fingers like it looks like?
Yeah, he's, that's always how he looks. He's never in a costume. That's just the way he looks.
Yeah. He had horns the whole time.
I was thinking that when I was watching, I was like, did Doug Jones do both? Was he the pale man and the pale man and the
he
Fawn?
was. Mm-hmm.
He
was also Silver Surfer.
It's gotten to the point now where you just know it's him. You're like, that's Doug Jones. Like, it's 100%. But he's amazing. And yeah, I think naming him off the top of my head, Pan's Labyrinth is probably top 3 for me in his catalog. I think it's funny whenever it comes like, is this whole movie in Spanish? Like, I think about that, but at the same time, I will, this particular edition, we talked about it on the text, is there's an option for audio and you go to English and then it just turns on the director's commentary. So you can't, because sometimes I like to watch movies in the background. So if it's in English, I'm going to get it more, but this one's never been an issue for me. None of his movies have been an issue for me as far as subtitles. I got over that a few years ago. Also, not being able to hear, I've always had the subtitles on anyway, so I'm always reading and watching. But I can't really build on more than what we've already said. With Kellen and the doctor getting shot in the back, that was miserable. That's, to me, maybe one of the most miserable parts in this entire film, just because the way he reacts.
It's so hard to watch.
it's just that reaction. You're like, that's how someone would probably react in that situation. It was like, oh, like something dramatic. He's like, and he knows, and that's just heartbreaking.
Well, and he stuck around too, knowing that he was coming back to kill him.
Right. Yeah. So, with talking about that, let's go around and give our ratings and our favorite kills of the movie. If I had money on it, I would probably say we all are going to have the same kill. Might be wrong. I'll go first. It's the captain smashing the bottle in the dude's face. And what's funny is between the first time and second time I saw this movie, I had a Mandela effect, and I was waiting for the girl to smash it into the captain's eye. In my head, that's what happened from the first time I watched the second. I don't know why I misremembered it so bad. And I was sitting there waiting for him, like, what happened? Like, I rewound. Oh, he already stabbed a guy. It was very strange. I've never had a Mandela effect like that besides like the Monopoly character having a monocle or not. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Google Mandela effect. Is fascinating. But the bottle repeatedly smashing, it was brutal. It was early in the movie, and you felt it. You feel stuff like that. As far as rankings, I think it's pretty obvious. I didn't give it a 5. I gave it a 4.5. I love it. I recommend it. It's on Tubi. If you have Tubi, it's free. Go watch it. It's an amazing film. So I give it a 4.5. Kellen?
Yeah. I mean, if we're talking about favorite kills, then I don't see how it can't be the captain because the look on his face when he realizes that his special bully is never going to know who he is so heartwarming to me after all the evil that he's done in that film. If we're talking about, worst kills, God, it's got to be between the doctor and that bottle. And when I saw it, I had to rewind and watch it again out of morbid curiosity of the special effects because it looked so brutal. Even if you are staring straight at it to try to, it looks so realistic that he's smashing this guy's face in so devoid of any kind of human emotion. Like he's not even recognizing this as a human being. This is just a thing in his way. And it's such a brutal thing, and it establishes how evil he is to begin with. So if we're talking about favorite kills, it's definitely the captain getting shot in the face. If we're talking about most brutal, I'm going to go with the doctor just because it's so heartbreaking. As far as rankings, I'm going to give it a 3.5. It's a movie I'm definitely going to go watch again. It's definitely worth a watch. Like I said, I was just a little thrown off. I think after I watch it again, my rating may go a little higher because it is just such a beautiful film, and Del Toro is just such a great director. But yeah, 3.5.
And peer pressure is why it's going up.
No, I was thinking about it earlier when I was taking a shower. I was like, I feel good with a 3.5.
Fair. All right, Molly. Favorite kill ranking.
I'm gonna call it a 5. It's an awesome film. It's perfect in my opinion. Film way up there for me, and so I saw it in the theater at the Belcourt when it came out, and seeing that bottle scene kill on a big screen was ridiculous. It was horrifying. It was just one of those moments, and when you're in the theater and you feel the entire audience like cringe up because it was so painful to watch, and like the Foley artist in that movie had to like fucking watch that shit and watch that person get their face bashed in over and over to try to get sound effects right, and how brutal that must have been. So that is definitely the worst kill. The most satisfying kill is definitely when the captain gets killed at the end. That's awesome. Yeah, so I'm gonna call it way up there, and I'm gonna say it's definitely, in my opinion, one of the most brutal kills I've ever seen in a movie. Like,
have you seen When Evil Lurks? Watch When Evil Lurks. So it's in Spanish as well, and it is one of the most brutal movies. There's some, it's amazing. Like, I think we probably gave it a 4.5 overall, like collectively. It's an amazing film. It's on Shudder. If you have Shudder.
So when you asked me to, for some films, I was going to give you Il Orfanato by Del Toro, because to me that's another horror movie that is way up there, and I just remembered that he did that one.
The Orphan.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
He produced that one. Yeah, he produced that. He didn't direct it.
Oh, I thought he directed.
Well, yeah, I mean, who would know?
Right.
You
It's
know,
very
if
It's,
you
it's
show that
very
somebody,
much
this is
his
Del
vibe,
Toro, you're like, oh
yeah.
yeah, I know Del Toro.
You
when I
could
see
say
it.
that was a sequel to Devil's Backbone.
And I think he wrote The Orphanage too, so it's pretty close. Yeah, it's got him all over it for sure.
And he worked on the Strain TV series. I mean, the man's amazing. All right, John, kill rank.
Favorite kill, I mean, the bottle kill of the guy's son. That was, oh, I forgot that. That's one of those things that I can't believe I forgot it. And then when I saw it, I was like, oh fuck, yeah, I remember this. Like, it just instantly came back. And it's one of those things where, you know, this movie, I don't know how many times I'm ever going to watch this again. I can't put over Nightmare Alley enough. I really think that film is like brilliant on so many levels. And when you rewatch it, there's so many things about that. I'm gonna have to rewatch it even again. It's one of those that really marinates. So that's probably the top for me with Del Toro. That being said, you know, I like it. I don't love it, but I also understand that this is a very great, well-made film. And even though there are things about it I don't really like, doesn't make it's not a good film. So I'm gonna give it 4 out of 5.
All right, TJ, bring it home.
Man, I think I'm gonna have to give it 4.5 out of 5. You know, I reserve those fives. I give very few fives, but there's technically not anything I can say really negative about it, other than it is brutal to watch. You definitely have to be in a certain kind of mood to 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 want to take that ride. And just to kind of elaborate on, obviously the most satisfying kill is the captain, but what makes it so satisfying is he expertly crafts a narrative, very little spoken about narrative all throughout the film about this guy and this patriarchal society, this patriarch of all patriarchs trying to take over the country and whatnot, and this captain leading like the charge with this thing. And his whole thing is he's a multiple generation soldier, right? His dad died in the army and he broke that pocket watch at the time that he died. And he went through it. They even show him fixing the pocket watch so he can have that, so he can do the same thing and pass on his legacy to his son. He had to have that son. That's why he said, I say, if it comes to saving the wife or the son, save the son. And that's what they did. So all the sacrifice he made to get to that point, and he fixed the watch. He had the watch right there, and before he knew he was going to die, he says, make sure my son knows the time that I died. And they said, he's not even going to know your name. It's just so satisfying, just to put the pin on that one. And then what makes that other kill, obviously the bottle kill is the most brutal kill, but what makes it so brutal and really establishes just how psychopathic this character is the fact that he's thinking these are revolutionaries, you know, the other side of the Civil War that they've been trying to suss out in the woods. And they just keep saying, no, we're just rabbit hunting. And then after he brutally kills the guy and then shoots them both in the head, the other guy pulls out 2 rabbits. and he just deadpans, does not react to it at all. And he just says, next time, maybe you want to check their stuff better before you get me involved. You know, that's just like, how brutal. And that's just expert writing on Del Toro's part to really make the dialogue around those scenes really elevate both of those kills. But yeah, I love it. 4.5 for me.
So that puts us at 4.3. So we'll call it a 4. You know, the first couple of times I watched it, I did. You know, you kind of get that Alice in Wonderland.
Wait,
feel of it, but
4.3
then-
raises to 4.5 though.
Yeah.
4.25.
All right, we'll do 4.5. Deal. 4.5. You know, the pocket watch and the rabbit hunting just kind of fortify that Alice in Wonderland kind of spin to me, because that was just 2 random things he throws in the movie. Obviously, it's connected to that.
And the Tarantino thing too?
Yeah.
You think he wore the watch up his ass?
I was just thinking that. He stuck his watch up his ass for years. It's like, oh, there he goes.
That's great.
All right, that's going to be a wrap on this episode. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and to wherever you're listening to this podcast. Follow us on Instagram and on TikTok. And then we have a group on Facebook you can join as well. And go check out Omen Bringer. Molly, you want to take a second, just tell everybody where they can find you guys, your music, upcoming shows and all that?
Sure. We are super active on Instagram, so you can find us on Instagram.com or Instagram app, Omenbringer Band. You can find us under that name under all of the social media websites and on Spotify, Apple Music, anywhere you get your music under Omenbringer, all one word. And our full-length album is coming out, should be this June on 6/6/24/666. And we're really, really excited about our full-length album, which will be 13 tracks. And our next show is going to be April the 26th, which is a Friday at the Cobra. So I hope anybody that's local in Nashville will come and join us for that show. We've been holed away working on the album, so it'll be our first time playing for a few months.
I saw the flyer for that show. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, who did that? I did.
We have
I did.
some epic artists in our community that we all love.
Go check them out. You said April 26th.
Friday, April 26th.
At the Cobra in East Nashville, Omenbringer, Hussy Fit, Look What I Did, and Big Gorgeous.
Big Gorgeous, yes.
Coming into town, and they're great guys. They did a video for us last year saying to go check us out. I've booked them a couple times now, so they're fun. What's funny is I've never seen them live. Like I've booked them twice now, and I haven't seen them because it's always been inconvenient. So, but April 26th, I'll be there. You guys should be too. Go search Omenbringer, follow them, Facebook, Instagram. Yeah, so that's going to be a wrap for this episode. Molly, thank you so much for taking some time with us, and thank you for giving me a reason to watch Pan's Labyrinth again.
Thank you, darlings.
And all right, that's it. Signing off. I'm Jay with John, Kellen, Molly, and TJ. And until next time,
keep it spooky.
If you've ever witnessed an on-screen autopsy, been terrorized by a deranged maniac, or seen a young girl possessed by the devil, you've entered the macabre world of Hollywood's horror effects. The point of this peculiar art form is to create the most shocking imagery imaginable. And anyone who can't cut it is in the wrong business. Welcome to the bizarre fright factories, where the masters of horror conjure grotesque creatures and gruesome effects. Coming up, we'll learn how Hollywood's most hell-raising creations are fabricated. And we'll meet the father of modern makeup effects, who turned The Exorcist into one of the most terrifying films of all time.
We have such sights to show you. Next, on Movie Magic.
And 1, 2, 3, stab.
Since the days of Frankenstein and Dracula, the best horror films have always been driven by unforgettable characters. Today, the maniacal Freddy Krueger, created by writer-director Wes Craven, has become one of the most recognizable and popular characters in the world.
I always feel like the real impact does not come from blood. I mean, you can have, gallons of blood, you can have rooms full of blood, but if the emotional impact isn't there, if you don't have an investment in characters, then it's either meaningless or it trivializes the sort of attendant suffering that is going on.
On the set of Wes Craven's new Nightmare, star Robert Englund, who plays Freddy, makes the transformation into Elm Street's arch nemesis. Freddy's scarred and burned face, designed by makeup artist David Miller, is integral to Englund's performance.
When you wear the makeup, it does this strange thing to an actor. It actually frees up the performance a bit. We're so used to working with our own faces, and we're stuck with these. But when you have all that makeup on, it kind of frees you up. It makes you feel a little more comfortable to be artificial.
Hi, kids!
But great horror characters must go through a long development process before they are turned loose with a chainsaw or machete. First, they emerge from the minds of horror meisters like Wes Craven or Clive Barker, creator of the Hellraiser films.
You know, I've been storyboarding this, and I've kept coming back to the image of the teeth closing around him in a different direction. Almost like a Venus flytrap, you know?
An accomplished artist as well as writer, Barker communicates his ideas visually to the effects team, who will bring his creatures to life. Gary Tunnicliffe and the crew at Image Animation International have created the makeup for the first 3 Hellraiser films and are about to embark on Hellraiser 4: Bloodlines.
Nobody escapes us.
With a normal director, you show them a drawing and they look at it and they kind of have an idea for a change. With Clive, he will take that drawing and he will put a piece of paper down and he will draw what he wants.
Hellraiser's star and leader of the film's sadomasochistic Cenobites is the incomparable Pinhead.
We'll tear your soul apart.
At Image Animation's Southern California studio, Tunnicliffe works on a new makeup design to be worn by Doug Bradley, who plays the needle-headed monstrosity. Tunnicliffe first sketches a layout for the latex facial pieces called appliances, which will be used for the makeup. The layout is sketched onto a plaster cast of Bradley's head.
I'm thinking if we sculpt the back, run one out of foam.
Next, the sculpting process begins. Tunnicliffe uses an oil-based clay called plastiline to fashion Pinhead's hairless skull and trademark grid. This grid, carefully laid out so it is evenly proportioned across the skull, was not part of the original makeup design.
What happened was somebody drew a graph on a bust in order to make sure the pins were even. And as soon as everyone saw the graph, they said, perfect, leave the graph in.
Once the sculpting is complete, the appliances are cast out of foam latex. When this process is finished, they are prepared for the all-important final step. Only now can Tunnicliffe begin the application of the 138 nails that appear to be driven into Pinhead's skull. Each of the hand-painted plastic protrusions is affixed to one of the appliances with super glue.
In a perfect world, we'd just hammer nails straight into Doug's head. But for some reason, he's really against that. Actors.
Finally, the makeup is ready to be applied to the star himself. While Bradley has played the role 3 times before, Tunnicliffe makes subtle changes to the makeup for each film.
The truth is that if I am standing still doing nothing, the makeup and the costume are screaming off that screen. So in a way, the less I do, the better it reads, and I have to just come to terms with that.
Once in full makeup, Bradley takes his gruesome visage to the set. When the camera rolls, Pinhead comes to life, and one of Hollywood's most horrific adversaries takes center stage.
This is a holocaust, waiting to wake itself.
What you're looking at is a guy with nails in his head. It's a horrendous idea, but your eyes are drawn to the image, and you look at it. And why? Because there's something about it very regal, very ordered. It's a great image, and it's one that, if only we could create again and again.
Oh, no tears, please. It's a waste of good suffering.
When we return, we'll meet the man who changed the face of horror makeup forever with The Exorcist. Long before the days of Freddy and Pinhead, a young makeup artist named Dick Smith revolutionized the craft of special makeup effects. Smith's inventive spirit and passion for realism evolved during his 15 years as the head of NBC's makeup department. His early feature film work was highlighted by transforming Dustin Hoffman into the 121-year-old Jack Crabbe in Little Big Man.
I started doing makeup way back in 1945, and I got into television. There wasn't anything like special makeup effects in those days. It wasn't until I worked on The Exorcist in 1972, I guess it was, that there was even a call for the kind of change on camera that was required.
The Exorcist tells the story of a young girl named Regan who is possessed by the devil. The lead role was given to an unknown actress named Linda Blair.
Really, the hardest thing on The Exorcist was arriving at Linda Blair's Regan demon makeup. I did a series of about 5 or 6 different makeups on her with appliances. First, just to see if I could make her look mean. I mean, this sweet little, apple-cheeked girl.
The testing process, seen in these rare camera tests, went on for weeks. Blair and her photo double, Eileen Dietz, gamely endured more than 5 hours per day in the makeup chair.
Some of them were overdone at first. Finally, we arrived at something that looked like it was workable, and I perfected it.
But Blair's makeup was only the beginning. The film required an incredible number of special rigs and mechanical devices to achieve such demonic effects as Regan's vacant eyes, serpentine tongue, and unforgettable 360-degree head turn. To accomplish the effect, Smith designed and built a life-size dummy of Linda Blair, complete with rotating head. Smith first cast a Linda Blair dummy in foam latex. Working with special effects man Marcel Vercouter, he then configured the dummy's rotating head and animated the face with radio-controlled eyes. One of Smith's biggest challenges was the scene in which Regan showers 2 priests in satanic vomit.
Eventually, I worked out a way of molding flat tubes out of heat-forming plastic that could be connected with a kind of a pipe that went through the mouth. A partial mask was fitted over to conceal it and to make her look like the Regan demon, and the rest of the makeup was conformed to that. Then the special effects man could pump pea soup right through this thing, and it would spray out at the camera or whatever.
The vomit effect was a tremendous success, and to this day is a lasting image in the minds of the film's fans. While Smith's makeup effects for The Exorcist mainly involved altering his subject's face, the 1980 film Altered States required full body transformations that were entirely unprecedented. In Altered States, Dr. Edward Jessup, played by William Hurt, experiments with untested drugs, which cause his body to go through a series of agonizing contortions.
The most challenging thing about the altered states assignment was in transforming someone from head to foot with foam rubber. I mean, a huge suit. Now, to make that look believable was technically and artistically frightening.
Smith spent more than 4 weeks sculpting the amorphous contours of 3 full-body suits out of plastiline clay. While the suits had to represent dramatic distortions of the human form, it was important to Smith that Hurt be able to express emotion through them as well. Then came the most difficult part. To allow Hurt to quickly get in and out of the suits on the set, Smith had each suit cast as a single piece of foam latex. The enormous plaster molds were constructed with large filling holes to accommodate the massive syringes used to inject the foam. The normally predictable baking or curing process had to be carefully monitored, as Smith had never before cooked up such large batches of foam. A custom oven even had to be constructed to accommodate the immense molds. Removing the appliances from the molds also required special care. Any damage to the suit at this point meant that the elaborate process would have to be repeated. Finally, Smith carefully trimmed and hand-painted the suits. When the finished pieces were presented to star William Hurt at a camera test, he was overwhelmed with the depth of Smith's artistic achievement.
What he had done was he had actually created with his hands a sculpture, a living sculpture, which was just phenomenally expressive of the progression into agony and that howling sorrow, that incomprehensible agony was something that he wanted to achieve with his hands.
In other scenes, Smith broke new ground with his use of air bladders, carefully controlled balloons that expand and contract to create movement.
The first time I had to use a bladder was on The Exorcist. And you remember little Linda Blair at one point has her throat blow up like a bullfrog. When it came to altered states, this was a far more complex thing. I couldn't simply put a balloon or something underneath the skin.
Instead, Smith had to mold expandable tubing, which was nearly flat and could conform to Hurt's arm.
What he had done was he'd used balloons and a harmonica device and compressed air, that was it. I laughed because it was so effective and so simple.
The filming of Smith's bladders and full-body suits was anything but simple, but the care he had taken in the design of the elaborate appliances enabled Hurt to endure the many hours he was required to spend encased in foam latex. In 1985, after 40 years in the business, he was honored with an Academy Award for his work on Amadeus. Today, Smith passes on the knowledge of his half-century career through a comprehensive makeup course he has designed for advanced students. He also lectures and conducts seminars at the Yoyogi Animation School in Japan.
Also, the director may say, I don't like that nose, change it. When I was contacted by a Japanese school in Tokyo that wanted to start a special makeup effects course, I agreed to license my course to them and also to go over twice a year to give lectures or demonstrations.
A special highlight for these students is when Dick shows off the skills that won him an Academy Award as he ages one of their fellow classmates by 50 years.
Time is always your enemy. You try to find shortcuts so that you can get the most art into the creation. Well, to me, there's a great sense of magic and wonder and even something godlike about changing a human face or an actor or person into something entirely different, a creature or another person or whatever it is, and having that person come to life. I don't know, I get a great thrill out of that.
Equally as important as Smith's work is his reputation for boundless generosity. Despite his dozens of innovations, he never keeps secrets from his peers, choosing to share all of his formulas and compounds with other artists.
He has inspired me for years and years and years. I carry his memory with me all the time. When I think about quality, when I think about courage, and continuing to go on toward the vision in a humane and compassionate and generous way, I think about him.
Next, the godfather of gore reveals the secrets of some of film's most gruesome illusions. In the morbid realm of horror effects, the rule of thumb is the bloodier, the better. Tom Savini always wanted to be an actor, but fate dealt him another hand. Today, he is recognized throughout the effects community as one of the finest practitioners of gore effects.
I have somehow become the king of splatter. It's because I did Friday the 13th and Dawn of the Dead right in a row. So producers would call me to get the same kind of stuff, I guess.
Even a blood squib, an effects device used to simulate a bullet hit, gets Savini's special touch. After fastening an explosive charge to the back of a protective metal plate, Tom fills a condom with twice the amount of fake blood generally used for squibs. He then tightly wraps the condom to ensure that the blood will not just ooze, but splatter.
Sometimes I feel like an assassin or a hired killer. I load up my car with my little tools in my tray, and I go some strange place and I kill people.
Far from Hollywood, in a blue-collar section of Pittsburgh, Savini oversees a busy workshop where his ghastly creatures and horrific effects are born. Many of Savini's effects involve specially designed props, which can have a shocking effect when applied to an actor or actress. For this scene from Day of the Dead, Savini fashioned a custom cutout shovel, which is used to gruesomely kill a zombie. After the prop shovel is used with the actor, a real shovel is used to finish the job.
Kicked up a stone.
Oh! That's pretty good, though.
Hey, Tom.
What now?
Well, it looks like we're out of blood again.
Out of blood again. You're fired. The important thing is to establish the real weapon to give credence, believability, to the fake one. Same thing with the hammers. Establish the real one before you use the fake one. Go away, you're fired too.
When the blood starts to flow, Savini uses concealed tubing attached to syringes filled with red liquid to produce the desired effect. This backstabbing rig is comprised of a tube which runs to a syringe filled with the fake blood. By manipulating the syringe, the operator controls both the quantity and the timing of the blood flow. One of the techniques for which Savini is best known is the use of false fronts or dummy bodies. The real arms and head of an actor are combined with a fake body, which is usually being mutilated or consumed. This technique was used in one of Savini's most infamous films, George Romero's Dawn of the Dead, and its sequel, Day of the Dead. Zombies were gunned down by the hundreds, but when the Walking Dead managed to catch up with an unfortunate victim, a feast would ensue.
I mean, my job was to sit around and think of ways to kill people. There were some ways in the script, we came up with a lot more of them. So we'd go to George and would say, how about if we take a screwdriver and drive it in some zombie's ear? And George would go, okay. And then we would, 2 hours later, would do it.
Perhaps the most memorable death scene from Day of the Dead was this poor soldier's demise, torn in half and devoured by a mob of hungry undead. Savini first constructed an elevated floor with a hole in it to allow actor Joe Pilato to hide his body from the chest down. He then attached a foam latex body section to Joe's shoulders and arms, complete with a large cavity to hold the blood and guts. The fake body technique is not as simple as it first appears.
You couldn't lay the body on me right now the way I am and have it look real, even if I put my head back. My chest has to be up for it to lie on, so it looks like the continuation of my shoulder line into the chest.
With the fake body and actor in perfect alignment, Savini has created one of the most vivid and gruesome death scenes ever shown on the big screen. Images like these may not be for everybody, but at the Fangoria Weekend of Horrors, an eccentric group gathers each year to pay tribute to their favorite directors and stars. Their heroes appreciate the attention, knowing they may never get the respect they deserve from the filmmaking community.
You know, in Hollywood, it's okay for a horror film to save a studio, but it's still not the class act. But in Europe, the horror film is as important as American jazz, as westerns, as gangster films. It's one of the things that Hollywood does great.
Here we go, lighting it up.
Horror films don't stand for things that you can point to when you're walking down the sidewalk, but if you extract from them what they're really about, these sort of subconscious realities, then we all do have these elements. We all do have Freddy Krueger.
Parker. And action.
The startling images which provide this kind of big screen impact are the contributions of the unique effects artists who practice this dark craft. Whether it's the bizarre characterizations of Pinhead or Freddy Krueger, the groundbreaking artistry of Dick Smith, or the morbid manifestations of Tom Savini, the proprietors of Hollywood's fright factories will continue to satisfy audiences who love to be scared to death by this chilling brand of movie magic.
This one's different. Trust me. So, we're just. Put the gun down before you kill someone.
Teenage Girl's Diary.
Hello and welcome to another Dollar Store Drive-In. I'm your host, Laura.
I'm Joel.
And this is Shaggy here sitting right smack dab in the middle like he likes to do.
Got a weird beard happening.
He's got a weird beard every day. Welcome to our show. This is Dollar Store Drive-In, like I said. And this is a half-hour-ish show where we discuss a movie that we've watched, usually the night before.
Typically.
And it normally needs to be a horror, sci-fi, occasionally like other
Thrillery,
film,
something,
thriller, yeah,
oddball, whatever.
It needs to be under $5, and typically we usually find it in the wild. We have rented them before, though, in the past. But yeah, we've been done getting them. We have purchased them through the Dollar Tree, the Dollar Store.
We have exchanged them for goods and services. No,
Yeah.
people sometimes are just plain giving them to us.
And it's super nice when they do that because then it's $0. Yeah. But yeah. So, and if this is Wednesday night and it is 6:30 Central Time, you can go watch us or talk to us live on Tingler Television.
We're back on Roku.
Yay!
As of the 5th, we were back on Roku. So by the time you see this, hopefully the chat will be back up and running at Tingler Television, but we should be on Roku. And I think it's also going to be on YouTube, maybe. So if you don't find us in one place or the other, check either place. But we're going to do our best to be there to have a chat with you.
And if you are not able to watch our show every single week, you can now listen to it on Spotify.
Goodness. And other fine podcasting directories.
And other fine podcasting directories. Yeah, we decided to turn our show into a podcast so you can actually listen to us as well. So, yay!
It is now out in the ether.
Yay, podcast. And if you are listening to us on the podcast, thank you.
Yeah.
You're welcome to watch us as well.
Yeah, if you'd like to see this, because some people prefer one or the other. Some people prefer both options. And they're also on our YouTube channel at youtube.com. I'll put the link here, / at the Newlydeads. You can also check out our video content there too. So if you want more of other stuff,
you can go there too.
Exactly.
We're everywhere.
We are everywhere.
Actually, where's the best place for them to check out for
Are you
everything?
going to do that now?
Go
you
ahead.
can also go to the newlydeads.com. It is a one-stop location. I would say, shop, but it's not really a shop. I mean, there's some shopping a little bit there. We're currently working on what we want to sell on our site. Yeah, we're not
Versus what we
entirely
might
sure.
sell in person,
Right.
et cetera, et cetera. So,
But
that part is still in the works.
we have tons of content on there. So you can find our show, you can find our podcast information, you can find information about us, the events that we're attending or going to. We also have a blog that Mr. Newly Dead here reviews other movies in the world. And I have started interviewing some local businesses. It's called Unearthing Small Business, where we interview some different local and it might just be small businesses in general. It doesn't have to be local to Rockford. Eventually we'll expand a little bit, but I thought we'd start local here.
But if you live outside of the Rockford, Wisconsin area and you have a small business,
and you want us to highlight,
we'll send you the interview form.
Yes. Yeah. It takes a couple minutes on your part, and then we do all of the information and we will share it on Facebook and Instagram and wherever else you want us to share it. So check that out as well, because we're having fun doing that. And it's, just one more avenue for us to be able to ooze our creativity out into the world.
There's a lot of stuff on the site, and it is growing. And there's a possibility there might even be different things coming in the future. Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah. The world is our oyster.
Mm-hmm.
The internet is our oyster.
Oh, there's a pearl in there.
Yeah. Good.
The Newlydeads.com, not Newlydeads.com, just in case. She said it right, but I'm just throwing it out there because when I was checking our statistics and stuff, I forgot that the band is Newlydeads.com. So they're not still making music, but their site is there. You can go check them out, though.
Yeah.
You might like them. So what did we watch this week?
Well, we watched a little movie called The Music Box. Yes, or the Carry On, as we learned that they called it, the Carry On, which they should have just titled it the Carry On.
But I've seen the word, but I never knew what it was until the movie. 49 years on this planet Earth, and I never connected the two. So if anything, it taught me that, and maybe that's why they didn't put that on there, because maybe people be like, what's that? Carillon.
Yeah, we're dumb. Because I was like, I know they're saying carry on. I don't know exactly how it's spelled. And so he looked up carry on, which he knew meant
rotted carcass.
Rotted carcasses and stuff. Yeah, dead meat.
Or like if you're going on an airplane, you got
then it's like a carry on.
Or like you're like, carry on.
And I'm like, no, I'm going to find this. I'm going to do some sleuthing. I did. It took me a hot minute because I kept typing in like, what is a music box? Blah, blah, blah. Like, what is another name for a music box? And they're just like,
thesaurus.com.
A musical box. I'm like,
You looked up the word carry on and I spelled it, a couple different ways.
And then finally I was like, I found it.
And she went, look. And I went,
oh.
And then she went,
that's our new thing.
That's our new thing.
I like to do thumbs up with our pumpkin hands.
Smashing pumpkin.
Yep.
Okay. Anyway.
So do you want me to read the synopsis before we call our friend over to show the, I'm not even going to say the name. Not yet.
Yes, please.
Okay. When 6-year-old Sophie is tragically orphaned, guardianship is assigned to her estranged aunt, Annabelle. The two move into a large, eerie Victorian house. That was not a Victorian house. Okay. No. Sorry. I'm getting off topic here. Back. Where Sophie unearths a locked wooden box with a strange symbol drawn on it. When the music box begins affecting Sophie's behavior and health, Annabelle seeks the aid of a child psychologist and clairvoyant, who soon discovers the music box possesses an evil spirit, seeking to haunt Sophie and destroy Annabelle. As the haunting intensifies, time begins to run out, and Annabelle finds herself racing against the music box's melody to defeat the spirit before the last note plays. That's not true.
Made it very exciting.
There's a lot of not true things on this synopsis.
Is there any other stuff on there, like reviews or anything like that? Comments?
It is an ITN movie.
This is an inadvertent ITN distribution week, which we hadn't planned it that way because this one was in the big box of fun, and we'd been kind of sticking to the list of stuff that Randy had sent us. So the fun part is that it actually falls in line with when we would have it normally anyway. So somebody up in the movie hemispheres, when we did our natural 3-roll thing, I don't know where I'm going with this. Anyway, selected it. So fun times.
Yeah.
So thank you, ITN Distribution.
Yes. All right. So are we going to call in our friend so that way the rest of our friends here in TV and music, whatever, Spotify land can hear it? All right. So where's the trailer?
I don't know. Where is it?
It's coming. It's over there.
Where?
Over there.
Over there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Hi.
Incidentally, I found that to create unique and new trailers, that there's actually a feature on my editing software that you can do it with AI. So sometimes we have weird phony generated trailers, but for some reason Alexa just is answering something. My phone buzzed too. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Let's get to this before things get weird.
Let's play the trailer.
It all started when she found it. A possessed object can be good luck. If the spirit connected to it experience immense joy, while it can cause misery if the object was connected to a tragic or sad event. May I ask where you found it? Buried in the garden. Sophie, can I see you? No. Sophie, can you turn on?
Hey, I need to talk to you. I'm here because I want to show you the video of this morning's sessions. Sophie and I were alone.
What does she want with this? Why is she following Sophie? If I were you, I would put it right back where it was buried.
And we're back. What'd you think of that trailer? Was it interesting? Did Mr. Newlydead do some weird stuff to it? I don't know.
I try not to mess with the ITN ones too much because
This one wasn't actually given to us,
we're
though. We
thankful
actually
to
purchased
Randy,
it.
but this one was bought, so that gives us a little bit more free reign. So we'll see what happens when we get to that point. But so all right, well, let me grab my notes here because I always take notes. This is the fancy paper. I didn't mean to use that. So I always draw some pictures on the fancy paper. So I did a ghosty that I actually like the way it came out. A robot, because you mentioned something about, well, we'll get to the robot thing. And then a spider, because there were spiders. And then, I wrote Curl, because, there was somebody that was in the cast and crew that name was Cearl, which I'm pretty sure is Cyril. But I was like, Curl,
like Pearl.
Circle up. Like,
I thought it was because like Pearl.
No, Walking Dead.
Oh.
I know people say Coral, but
I thought it was because you're like, that person's name is Curl, because it's like Pearl. I laughed way too hard at it then.
She did. She laughed really hard, and I thought she was laughing because I thought it was a Walking Dead thing. But you thought it was a Pearl thing? Like Pearl what?
I even said that.
I know, but why is that funny?
It just was.
Pearl?
Because I figured it was Cyril. And then as soon as you saw it, I thought in my head at the same time, and you said Curl.
Oh, that is funny then. Also, I wrote, this is an actual ghost.
Oh. Very spooky.
So the Music Box, aka
Carry On,
is from 2018, currently sitting at 3.5 out of 10 on the Internet Movie Database. Shaggy, quit chewing on your foot, buddy. He chews on his feet right now because it's wet outside and he's trying to get the water off. And so, that's how you get water off, is by making it wetter. Dog logic. Anyway, all right. So this was written and directed, co-written and directed by John Reel, who is known for directing the films Breath, Obsessio, and Midway, which, if you ask me what any of those three movies are about, I'm going to say I don't know. It's the only three that were in his credits, as far as I remember, as being directed by him, other than this one. So, didn't give me a lot to choose from. I tried to choose the interesting ones. As far as being a writer, he's got two things on there that were different than the movies he's directed. The first one is called Feel the Dead, which was a TV series. It looks like it's about the undead. And then a movie called The Beginning, Feel the Dead, which I assume is a prequel series to Feel the Dead, is my guess. I've never heard of either thing. So, but if it's a zombie series, there's, quite a few of them out there these days. So who knows? And this was also written with Adriana Marzagali, who is also known for Feel the Dead and The Beginning, Feel the Dead. All right. So as far as who is in this movie, it stars one Rachel Day. I'm going to say Daigh. Day. Dagnabbit. Any of those?
No.
Okay. Who actually has at least one credit for something I've heard of, which is Sharknado 5, Global Swarming. She was also in Books of Blood, the Clive Barker series. I believe it was a series. And Breath, which of course circles back to John Reel. Circle up.
Girl.
This also stars Antonella Salvucci.
It's gotta be that little girl.
Antonella Salvucci. She was known for Red Riding Hood, Bloody Sin, and Dark Waves. Lots of spooky stuff, so maybe not.
It might be the librarian.
That's what I was thinking. Maybe it's the librarian or
the library.
Yeah, probably the librarian. She was the only other one that was there than
and she had an accent.
The psychologist or whatever, and she wasn't her. And then finally, Antonio Lujak.
That's the psychiatrist, I bet.
Who has done at least two films that we know that we've actually seen as well, and one that I didn't know. The first one is The Last Jedi, which Star Wars. He was in Robin Hood, the one with Taron Egerton, the modern one with all the explosions that Michael asked. Was commenting how whenever they do remakes these days, they've got to be modernized and have lots of explosions. And in that, during the course of that trailer, by the end of it, there was giant explosions, and I was like, "You are so right." And finally, Silent Love Stories 2. I don't know what makes them Silent Love Stories and why there's a sequel, but
maybe they're deaf.
Maybe it could be. Could be an ASL movie. I don't know. Hey, Shags, you just come say hi to me because you already said hi to Mama. Yeah, there are kids, so Mama, Papa. Anyway, all right. So at this point, I turn to my wife, and she says,
"You're off the rails today."
I
am. What'd you think?
And I say, "We'll get to that." All right. So first thing I've got to say is that there was a lot of things that were subpar about this film. Right from the get-go, when they move into their new, what they call it on their house?
Victorian house.
In their Victorian-era house, the little girl goes up and is in her new room, and she freaks out, and the mom, her aunt comes and is like, what's going on? And the kid's not talking to her at that point because of whatever happened to her parents. And they look down and they cut to a, what'd you call it? What's the word I'm looking for?
What part?
The spider.
Oh, he called it an outdoor spider, but it was indoor.
Because
it was like one of those, I don't know, banana-looking spiders.
Yeah, but what do they call it when you get footage from somewhere else?
Oh, like stock footage.
Stock footage. It was a stock footage of a spider in a web.
Outside.
But it was clearly an outside shot.
She's like, and she's not speaking.
Right.
Yeah.
and they show where she's pointing, and it's like, her toys and stuff are over there. And then they cut to the outside spider, and then they cut back and to the woman who's like, it's all right. It's just a spider or whatever. And we're like,
I was like, was like an orb weaver, like those big ones that like make those giant webs with like, they're like black and like yellow or whatever.
So I wrote
not
outside spider, man.
Yeah. It was.
I don't know why our dogs are so needy. I'm off the rails. The dog is needy. The other one is looking at me sleepily.
He's tired.
And we're talking about
probably
a movie.
hungry.
Probably, because we're both tired and hungry as well.
Yeah.
We didn't know what was going on with the kid initially. Like, typically, I think if you're going to have a relationship between a child and an adult, you kind of want to establish what that relationship is. Because we were both like, is it a foster kid or is it adopted? Did she kidnap
And
the
then I
little
should have
girl?
remembered because it's like the first line in here.
Oh, right. We did read that last week.
Tragically orphaned. They don't show that. They don't talk about that. There's no like lead up to it. It's just this blonde woman and then this like tiny little like Italian looking girl, and she's not talking.
Yeah. Like, we didn't find out who she was until like 30, 40 minutes into the movie. And then we both were like, oh, it's the niece, and that was her sister's kid.
Yeah.
Got it.
Like, why did they? It was
strange. I don't understand it.
Yeah, it's a little murky in the beginning, like what's actually going on. And
did you notice that there was constant piano music throughout the film? Like, just tinkling little piano in the background throughout the entire movie.
I didn't even pay attention to that.
Shaggy did. He was sitting there next to me going,
oh, is it from the music box?
I'm assuming it was supposed to be like a music box, but it was just a piano. Like, it was the same
a carry-on.
Yes, it was a carry-on, because that's what they kept calling it.
Can I see your carry-on? I was like,
what, we're getting on a plane? What's happening?
Yeah, that psychiatrist is like, that's an interesting carry-on. Can I look at it? She's like, no.
Yeah. She was very protective of the carry-on music box. Did you give a crap about any of the characters in this film? Any of them?
I like the gargoyles.
Well, the gargoyles were in the safe room, but they weren't characters. They were set dressing. But any of the actual live characters, even not even the orb weaver, because it wasn't even on the set. It was somewhere in Tasmania or something. I'm just curious.
No.
Yeah, because I wrote zero care for any of the characters, and then I wrote Nerfin.
I mean, the librarian was fine.
Yeah, but I mean, even the librarian who opened the music box was submitted to some pretty gnarly, like potentially what felt like spine-breaking kind of stuff, ended up just getting passed out on the floor. And also, this new mother, the niece of the little girl, is a terrible parent. She just left her with a librarian she'd never met until that day. And the librarian's like, sure, I'll keep an eye on her.
Yeah, she's like, hey, there's this lady that like is a psychic or whatever. You should go hang out with her and like go ask her questions about your house. And then she's like, okay, well, if I go to do this, can you watch my niece that you've never met before and I've only met you once? She's like, of course. That is a nice librarian. And then the librarian was like mean to the little girl.
Yeah, and she's
like,
just doing her
don't walk
job.
around back there. Like, stop wandering or looking at the shelves. I'm like, you're a library. Like, why can't she like look at the freaking books?
Yeah, we were
weird. No wonder she didn't want to talk to anybody. A bunch of a-holes.
We were very confused about that. I mean, Mother of the Year. Good job. Later on in the movie, when they realize that the little girl is haunted by the music box girl, they call in a woman to the medium person with her buddy to, suss things out a little bit. And that's where it felt like they were trying to get into an Insidious territory, but it didn't really work. Yeah. And
she was doing this.
Yeah. Yeah. She walked in the house and she was like, it's like she was, going to be doing like, it's not a dance move or something.
Yes.
And she's going to dab. I don't know.
Oh,
I
no.
apologize if my mic is,
Dabbing.
My kids hate when I dab, and I do it
and then she just
to annoy them.
points and then she's like, go look at this to her assistant.
And he's like, all right.
Oh, a tear in the wallpaper. I wonder why you like thought that maybe there's something spooky behind that in this creepy room.
And then, there happens to be some writing behind
some symbols, but they were good symbols. They were protection.
It was protection. Yeah. The whole room was protected. The safe room.
Yeah.
So I wrote here two things, one right after the other. I said, I'm patiently waiting for this to end. And I did a lot of ellipses. And then I wrote, I would rather watch paint dry. So if I'm putting my cards on the table at this point, because we're getting somewhere near where we need to start talking about our thoughts on like ratings of this, I very rarely want to turn a movie off. I very rarely will not have enough interest to watch a movie until its completion. I will watch anything once, and I'll typically, if I'm not sure about it, maybe give it a second shot. I don't know, 15 minutes into this, I was like, okay, when is this? It was an hour and like 20 minutes, and that was too long.
Oddly enough, I did not fall asleep during it.
Weird, right? Is it because we were talking about it the whole time? Like we were commenting on it and looking for more? Because there was more stock footage later on. There was stock footage again, which it's fine if you can't afford the shot or you forgot the shot or, you don't have the budget for it. It's fine. It's not a problem with that. Ed Wood made a whole career out of it. But
if you do it like right, and you can do it like where it's either like really funny, like on purpose or kind of, that kind of thing, or like, just good at it and like put some stock footage in there or take your own stock footage.
If you have the time, but if you're going to use somebody else's footage and you're going to try and sub day for night or whatever, inside for outside, there's editing software tools that you can do to adjust it to make it kind of fit.
And like,
I've done it on this show.
Find a spider that looks like it's at least inside. It was so bizarre.
Yeah.
Like, ooh, look at this.
Or zoom in on it closer so it doesn't look like it's clearly attached to a plant outdoors with the sunlight on it. And it's drinking, some iced tea, and it's got a hat and little sunglasses on, and apparently is just retired. It's a retired spider.
Yeah.
Had a good
Just
long,
living its best
week-long life and was ready to retire.
Yeah, just wants to be in peace. And this little girl's just pointing at it.
And sang Orb Weaver by, I forgot who sings Dreamweaver.
Orb Weaver. Yeah.
So
there's a couple of things that I was like talking about on the back here too, like the Victorian house. It was an A-frame.
Yeah. She even made a comment about it because I was like, oh, those windows are cool. And I'm like, it's kind of neat the way they've got like these slanted things. I'm like, it'd be kind of hard to hang up pictures, but it looked cool. It'd be like a fun house to have as like, as a rental, like when you're in your, college years or a little after. I don't know that I want to live there like now, and she even said it. She's like, it's an A-frame house. I'm like, well, it's going to get some work done. It'll be a C-frame house. And she's like, what?
Like make it bigger.
Oh, I get it. They're going to, because I was like, they'll add onto it and make it a C-frame house. Get it? A-frame, C-frame. I'm winking at you.
Yeah, or a double D frame. That's what you should have said. That would have been a lot.
That would have made more
sense. Yeah, easier for me to be like, oh, I see what you're going with. Boobs.
So
yeah, and then the other thing that I was like looking at back here.
Yeah. Sorry.
So there's no time beginning to run out where it says like here it says you have to. You're racing against the music box's melody to defeat the spirit before the last note plays. None of that came into play, unless that's what that piano music you're talking about that you kept hearing the entire time.
There was a bit towards the third act where they were talking to
that one
people
lady
about the music box, and they found like the lore about it, and they said that the way that it worked is that if they didn't get it separated from the little girl, that eventually it was going to become the little girl. It was going to take her over permanently. So there was a bit of a race against time, but
it didn't have anything to do with the last. Yeah.
No, I think they were just trying to be a little too clever.
All right. So what do you think on a scale of 1 to 5? Right? Gargoyles.
Yeah, it's 1 to 5.
1 to 5 gargoyles.
I mean, there were some competent aspects to the filmmaking, so I can't get into the negatives. But I legitimately didn't care about anything going on. I didn't care about the story. I didn't care about anything. There was nothing that grabbed my attention. And it takes a lot for me to say that, because I've seen some stuff that nothing happens or that is super low budget, like somebody paid for it with, a pack of gum and a bottle of beer or whatever, and they've made a movie that was better. So no offense to whoever made this. Good try. But don't give up your dreams. But
It was that.
It's a big fat 0 as far as
Real
I'm
guy,
concerned.
Josh Real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a 0 for me. I can't.
Oh, I'm going to give it a half of a star. I didn't fall asleep.
Didn't fall asleep?
Mhm.
So what are you knocking off the half for?
What am I knocking off the half for?
Yeah, don't you give it 1 if you stay awake?
Well, at least 1.
Oh, I see. So you're saying I'm not going to give it the full 1. I'm just going to give it half.
Because you can go underneath. So like
Oh, you can
it
do
could
whatever you
be
want.
a -3 and I'd give you a -2 because I'm adding 1 point to it.
Okay. So you're maybe at like a negative.
A negative half.
Half, and then you gave it 1 because you didn't fall asleep. Which
Yep.
brings it to a half.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So,
Yeah.
Sorry, Music Box, carry on, whatever, but playing our
R.I.P. Yep. All right. So if they don't want to watch the Music Box, what should they watch, Joel?
Well, I was trying to think of films that involve a found object that summons a undead girl ghost that is then, involved with a small child and a single mother who is, trying to make that relationship work and has an estranged, male figure of some sort. Doesn't actually have to be a father, just a male figure that's involved.
The Ring?
So I'm going with 2002's The Ring.
Ah.
Before I even got there, I was trying to lead up to that. And
That was fun.
So, if you've not seen the Naomi Watts, Gore Verbinski remake of the original, which the original is fine. It's good. I prefer,
Ringu?
I think the remake is actually better.
Talking about Ringu?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a superior film. It's actually
it's good.
Up there pretty high for me as far as films that,
I like The Ring.
horror films. And I highly recommend if you ever want to do a double feature, watch this and Seven. If you like rainy day movies, because both of them, it's raining pretty much the entire film. It's gray. It's very dark.
Very dismal and drab and it's got a mood, man.
Yeah.
It's a mood.
Makes me so happy. I love it. And it's actually one of the movies like that and The Grudge, the remake of The Grudge, that actually make me a little uncomfortable. Like the noises the ghost makes and the little girl ghost, like Japanese girl ghost movies. That's one of the things that still kind of creep me out, even though I've seen a ton of them and there's a ton of them out there. So.
Always creepy. Okay. So what are we watching next week?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Chosen at random from the big box of fun. I'm actually excited about this one. We are watching
Assassination Nation
from 2018. This one was in the movie theaters. It
cool.
Did a thing. Oh, I forgot to tell you at the very end of the Music Box, they said 1 month later, and they showed the little girl and her mom, and nothing happens. They're just happy living their lives, and they walk off in the sunset, and that's the end. There's
you could have just left it at that. Don't do the 1 month later. We figured things were fine.
There was no piano music. There was no creepy ghost noise. There was nothing that indicated that things were still bad or that they were coming back. It's just them walking off happily in the sunset.
With the guy.
Forgot to mention that.
With the therapist.
Oh, right.
Not professional therapist, man.
Yeah.
Don't be banging the aunt of your freaking patient. What the
Keep
heck?
your copays in your pants.
Yeah.
All right. So anyway.
All right. So Mean Girls meets The Purge is what it says. It says, you asked for it, America. High school senior Lily and her 3 best friends live in a world of selfies, emojis, snaps, and sex. But when their town of Salem is besieged by a massive data hack, resulting in and half of the citizens, man, it's hard to read red and white. Private info spewed onto the public into the public view, the community descends into anarchy. Lily is targeted after being falsely blamed for the hack and bands together with her friends to survive a long, blood-soaked night. It definitely sounds like Mean Girls.
It's
meets The Purge.
Was interested in the storyline. The characters that aren't Suki Waters' house is in it.
I'm in.
Which I like her.
There's a gag reel.
There's a lot of people in this film that are names. So this is a little different from what we normally do, kind of like when we did Passengers. Big budget.
But where'd you find it?
But I found it at the Dollar Tree. Oh, there's a
is this already
whoever
open?
bought it didn't take all the wrapping off. Come on, kids, get with the program.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we already gave them all of our locations where we're at. The only thing we didn't give you was if you have any questions, comments, concerns, You can reach us at contact@thenewlydeads.com. Anything else?
No. The only thing I have left to say is thank you very much for watching. And until next time,
keep it cheap and creepy.
Bye.
Go look after your mother and sister. Where are you going? We're gonna finish this.